Welcome back, sailors. This is your captain speaking, and welcome to the game show, the game talk show. I just said in my other video that I didn't want it to be just a game talk show or just a video game thing. I want to be able to talk about lots of different stuff, really just anything. I was even thinking about doing voiceovers for my daughter, like recording stuff that she says, like goo goo gaga. No, I'm just kidding. She didn't say that at all. But I just taking videos of her and then voicing over the stuff that she says, saying hilarious stuff that I think when this stuff is happening. And I just think that stuff is hilarious. And I said stuff like 14 times already. So we're gonna have to stop with that stuff immediately. Immediately. Anyways, let's get on with it. We're talking about video games. Today's one of the video game talks, and we're talking about video games. Loot boxes. So the US and we'll just start with the US. The US is talking, with all the powers that be, that loot boxes they may attempt to try to phase loot boxes out completely. Now, if you don't know what a loot box is, it's essentially a microtransaction within a game that sort of ups the fun in it, I guess you would say. It can vary from game to game. Like, it might be new gun, it might be new gun skin, it might be new maps, it might be new characters, it might be something customizable. It can be anything from, any of that stuff right down to anything else. So that was super vague. Loot boxes are an essential part of a game because not only does it help support the game in general, like support the characters in it and support the teams that are making this and the effort that they're putting into keeping people around, but loot boxes are also important for the pro players. Well, not necessarily pro players, but for players who really enjoy that stuff. Because sometimes, for example, like, you play a fighting game, like, say you get Mortal Kombat. You get Mortal Kombat, and your favorite character is Scorpion. But you don't necessarily like Scorpion the way that they've made him in Mortal Kombat 11. You can go into the store and you could buy a loot box, a microtransaction for the original, Mortal Kombat 2 version of Scorpion, where he's in the ninja outfit and he's got the yellow on him and he looks awesome. Like, it's just a super awesome, nostalgic way to look at Scorpion. So that's essentially just something that I think that they should keep in games, but it makes it difficult because on the flip side of that, it can just be a skin, or it can also be something that puts you above where everybody else is. Loot box can also contain characters or guns or something that gives you an edge on players that wouldn't necessarily be able to play that. That's where you hear the term like free to play get tossed around. Like, some people are free to play, so they don't pay anything in the game and they just use whatever currency the game gives them and they go about their way. Now, you can still survive in a lot of games that way, but honestly, it's way funner to spend money on a game like Brave Exvius. And oh my goodness, why am I so popular when I'm doing this stuff? Like, nobody talks to me all day, and then as soon as I start doing stuff, they're like, bing, I care about you. Care about me later, okay? Or earlier when I'm not doing stuff. Anyways, loot boxes, okay, they can up the amount. Like, for instance, Brave Exvius. Brave Exvius, now, I wouldn't necessarily can call it a loot box, but loot boxes can be anything, like I said before, from characters to having the currency to get characters. So in Brave Exvius, they use a currency called Lapis, and you use the Lapis to summon for characters. Now, it's ridiculously expensive, and I'm going to get into something else to do with that in a moment, but it's ridiculously expensive. And characters come out every week. There's new characters, at least, at the most, if a new character doesn't come out within a week, it will be 2 weeks time that a new character comes out. So sometimes when they drop a character, the character is unbelievable. Like, it breaks the meta, and the meta is just basically meaning that it's the best character at that current time. It's top tier. It's the top of the list. It does whatever it does the best, better than anybody. So with these characters that come out, sometimes they drop and it completely breaks the game, and they're so good that it's almost impossible to not want them. But at that same time, it makes the content in the game so much easier. Now, not everybody can afford that. So you have your free-to-play players who aren't able to get this character because they don't have the summoning currency to obtain them, whereas the people who are paying in the game are able to get that. Now, that's fair in some ways, and it's also not, because not everybody can afford that stuff. People have lives, people have jobs. Some people's, in-home life is different than others. Like, I'm not a rich man by any means, so I can't necessarily be dropping, $200 to try to get this awesome new character that's out. But my friend can, and my friend's a casual, but he still drops the money, so he gets the stuff that he wants. Now, it has a fair aspect and it doesn't, but again, you can't really compare. So what has happened is loot boxes have ended up costing people millions of dollars. Not just singular people costing millions of dollars. I'm sure there's a few out there that have gone to a ridiculous extent and spent far too much money. I know that even though I'm a broke guy, I have still spent way too much money on this stuff. But there are people who have gone out of house and home to do this stuff because it's a form of gambling, if you think about it. And they've actually banned it in some other countries completely, to the point where these companies are saying you can't play our game if you can't put money into it. If not a single person in this country can put money into the game, that country cannot have our game, which I think is crazy. Maybe the solution is just lowering the prices so that it's not so crazy to think. But gambling is a problem, whether you're doing scratch tickets or you're gambling your life playing Russian roulette, or buying loot boxes and trying to obtain the characters that you want. It happens, and it's a sick way to obtain money from people because really, you're there when it comes to characters in a video game or like skins or something like that. It's not really anything physical. It's just for enjoyment for a few months or a few weeks or even a few days, depending on how fast things can happen. So I definitely think that there are things that need to be worked out, but I think that goes along with anything. You never drop, like, I've never heard of a perfect game. I've never heard of, not, there's perfect games in baseball, but I mean, I've never heard of a game dropping or you drawing the perfect picture. Nothing in life is really perfect. It's only perfect until you look at it from a microscope and you can take apart what you've done and you learn from it. And then that moment is perfect. That picture is perfect. That game is perfect. But nothing comes out perfect. Nothing ever comes out perfect. It takes the mistakes and it takes the working and it takes the everything to it to become perfect. But perfect is always in hindsight. It's not a moment that happens spontaneously when you're doing things. And in a way, that's very beautiful, and that was very poetic, and I didn't realize how beautiful that was when I was thinking about it, but it's the truth. And it had nothing to even do with what I was saying, in a way, but it does. And it's definitely something that needs to get worked out. The kinks need to get worked out because loot boxes can be terrible. Now, that being said, Brave Exvius just went through a huge ban wave because the game is far too expensive. It's actually crazy, but there's this thing called resellers. And what the resellers do is they have different methods of basically acquiring Lapis, which is the in-game currency for Brave Exvius. And I've used a reseller personally, and I hope that they do the method that didn't get a bunch of people banned, because some of the resellers, what they were doing is they were using stolen credit cards and fake named credit cards, and they were going and buying the Lapis and then calling the companies and getting a refund, which is stealing. And if you're doing that, then you're a piece of garbage. Stealing is not a good thing. It's okay to do it when you're a kid, or maybe if you need a can of soup to feed your family. I don't know your situation, but I'm sure that there's a line somewhere in there, a gray area, that stealing is okay. But I mean, in terms of stealing from a big company just because, it's too expensive in your opinion, that's not right. That's not your call. You don't get to say that stuff. Stealing isn't a good thing unless you're doing it for a good thing, but you're not Robin Hood, so you need to stop. Anyways, some of the resellers do it the legit way, which the legit way would be they use programs, and the programs run a bunch of games, and they fill up Google Play or they fill up iOS cards. And when they fill up these cards, then they can sell the Lapis to people because they go into the stores on your account and they purchase the in-game currency, and then you get it because you've paid that money to them. And then in return, they use the money that they get to put back into these things that they're able to do, running these programs, getting more computers, more phones, to do all this stuff. Now, that's a legit way to do it. But if you're stealing, nah. So a bunch of people got banned. I was really worried that because I used resellers before, I was really worried that I was going to get banned, and I would have cried. Honestly, this video would have been 10 minutes of me crying at this point, praying that I would get my game back, but it happens. And resellers happen in all the games that you play on your phone. I don't know. I don't think resellers happen, on a console or even on a computer. But again, I don't know too much in terms of the games that are happening on computers. So I don't know about that. It's something I could maybe look into. But for the most part, it's a scary thing. But resellers at that same aspect really do help the game, because Brave Exvius, again, for example, is kind of crazy. So if you think about it, 5,000 lapis gets you a multi-summon. I don't know why I showed 10, but 5,000 lapis gets you one multi-summon. One multi-summon is 10 summons, and it's not even a guaranteed rainbow. And rainbow is the highest tier that you can get in the game. So if you spend, for me, to get 5,000 lapis, it costs about $60. So $60 for one multi-summon, which is 10 summons, and not a guaranteed shot at a rainbow, that's robbery. That is bad. Like, to not guarantee somebody even a rainbow. Now, to some people, that's basically going to be speaking another language, but the people who do play this game and they know what's going on, like that, it's crazy how expensive it is to play that game. $60 is almost a new video game for console. Like, that's crazy that it's that expensive. If you smoke, that's 5 packs of cigarettes. If you drink beer, that's almost 3 cases of beer. If you like McDonald's, that's like 5 meals. Like, that's crazy that they would charge that much for one shot. At one shot, and not even a guaranteed shot. That is one of the reasons why resellers are important, because resellers are still giving Gumi, the company that runs Brave Exvius, they're still giving them 100% of the money that they're asking, but they're getting it at a much, the resellers are getting the Google Play dollars at a reduced rate. It essentially costs them nothing when you think about it, because they're just putting the hard work in. So, I mean, they're important to the game. If they found more ways to be legit, or maybe if Gumi wants to cut out resellers, maybe they drop their prices and they don't make it so oppressive, because that is an oppressive price, and that needs to be looked at entirely. So that's why I kind of agree that loot boxes need to get completely undone in the first place. But I do think that there needs to be a happy medium, because that's how life is. Everything that's good has to be equally as bad. It's just the way that it goes. So going on, because I just went off on all that stuff, there was a man who suffered a stroke in Chicago, and they actually got him to move his fingers and his toes and his ankles and his wrists from using video game technology, like the technology that they use to put the characters into the game. Like, you ever see them, they're like say you're like playing like God of War, and you see Kratos like hopping up a cliff and like using like his chains and stuff like that to climb up a cliff. Well, when you're watching that scene, what's actually happening is this dude in this funny spandex suit covered in light bulbs, and it's a man doing all that stuff. They use that same technology to send electrolytes, and well, not electrolytes, to send electricity from his back, or from his head to his back, all the way through his body, and it ended up resetting the receptive pieces in his body to reset again still, the ability to use those, because when he had the stroke, sometimes the connectors that happen through your body, because everything's connected, right? Some of those things shut off and they don't come back on. It happens all the time with your body. Sometimes that happens just naturally without having a stroke, which is devastating in the first place. And I'm not trying to take away from that at all, but I'm just saying it's pretty incredible that they were able to use the technology from video games, which is something that they've never probably thought about before, to make that kind of connectivity and fix this man. And hopefully he can go all the way back to living his normal life from doing this sort of research. And that's what people do that for, just throwing a weird idea out and it ends up being crazy. Some of the greatest things happen just from weird ideas that pop up. We all have them, so don't be shy to do that stuff. Lastly, George R.R. Martin, the creator of Game of Thrones, he's the writer of the books. I don't think he's the director of the show at all, but I could be wrong on that. I know a little bit about the books personally, just from reading, and then I know a little bit about the show because my friends cannot stop spoiling stuff. I'm so mad. Anyways, I'm so sorry about that. He's a great writer. He's had his hands in lots of different stuff. He's done like movies and he's done his books and he's done his TV shows, and he's a very successful writer, very successful. And I love the idea of everything in Game of Thrones, but I'm a binge watcher, so I like to watch everything at once, and I want to crush Game of Thrones once I can get it all in there and just enjoy it. and that's how I do things. So I've been waiting to kind of splurge on that, and it's eventually going to happen. But what's cool is George R. R. Martin is talking about doing a game series. Now, not just a game series as you would say, like, you know, as like a Final Fantasy, we'll say, or, you know, as a Mario, where, you know, it's just one game and then blah, it's done. Like, not that type of series. He's talking about a series of video games that all connect to what? Why is this happening? I don't understand it. Can you stop talking to me? Man, I'm so upset. Like, I'm 15 minutes into this video talking, all of a sudden, oh, all of a sudden you're popular. Like, come on. Anyways, he's doing video game stuff, and I'm so annoyed. I'm so annoyed that that happened. Anyways, it's really cool that he's doing that stuff. Him doing a video game series where he may be putting 3 or 4 or 5 installments into something with the ideas that he likes to push, because he does like to push more of a medieval theme, and I love that stuff. I absolutely love that stuff. Like, bring in the dragons and the fighting and the magic. That's the stuff I like. He has this great quote, and I think I don't want to completely butcher it, but it's just like just a really good quote, and it goes something like this. It's like English. It goes, "The man who reads has lived 1,000 lives, but the man who doesn't lives only one." And I think that that's just so cool, because it's one of those things, like, books do that. Video games do that too, but books especially. Because when you read, you like really, it really gets your brain going, and you really get into, you know, a book and the images, and you start thinking about it, and it's all you can think about when you read, and it's just, it really puts you into what you're doing. And it's a love, and lots of people should read, because it stimulates your brain, and it's great for you, and I even need to read more. But it's true about that reading really does let you live a bunch of lives, and not just the one. You know, not that your life is mundane, or that there's anything wrong with it or something. Some people lead really exciting lives. Some people find the joy in everything, but you can always find enjoyment in a book that separates you from the life that you're living. And sometimes it's good to be able to get away. You know, that's why people take trips. And, you know, books, you know, might not be as adequate as going to Brazil and hanging out in, you know, a pool and just enjoying the weather and getting a nice tan on, but it can do something good. Anyways, I want to thank everybody for watching the video. I'm really sorry that my phone was going off. I'm really irritated about that right now. I don't know if you can tell by my face, but I'm not very happy about it. Anyways, I want to thank everybody for watching the video again. I want you to like, I want you to subscribe, and I want you to share this video so we can get these videos super popular. Anyways, thanks everyone. Bye.